everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to make lemon chicken orzo soup, some lemon blueberry scones, and some sandwiches to use up some of our yeast rolls. So let's get our onions caramelizing for our soup. So I'm going to put in a bit of olive oil, like a tablespoon, and then we're going to chop up just half of an onion here because we're going to be using some green onions as well. So we're going to take off this whole outer layer of onion. Let's chop that side because it's just chewy and won't chop up as nicely. There. And then we're going to do just a simple kind of dice on it. Doesn't have to be too small. There we go. And then I'm just going to toss these into my Dutch oven. And we're going to let them saute while we prep up our scones. I'm going to give my hands a little bit of a wash so I don't get any onion transfer to our scones. Okay. For our scones, we are going to start out with our dry mix first. We are going to add in 2 cups of flour, of all-purpose flour. That's a little pocket in that one. So 1 and 2. Pop this right over here. And then 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And this is going to be part of the rising agent in our scones. So 1 and 2. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. So scones, if you've never had a scone before, they're just mildly sweet. They're not overly sweet, but they have a mix between a biscuit and a thing. I'm going to grab my cold butter out of the fridge because you want to use cold butter, just like with biscuits. Let's grab a knife. And we're going to cut our butter into our mixture here. So first, let's give it a good stir. Make sure all that sugar, flour, baking powder, and salt get mixed together. Here we go. And realize I forgot to turn my burner on over here. Silly me. Let's get a spoon out and give that a little stir first. We'll just coat the onions with the olive oil. And we're going to let those saute up. Okay, so we've mixed up all of ours together. Now we're gonna cut in 1/2 cup of butter. So kind of just like with biscuits, what I like to do, we're gonna peel off the whole wax paper. This one's sticking to it for some reason. There we go. I like to cut down and kind of cut mine into fourths and then cube it. It just makes the cutting into it process a little bit easier. There we go. And let's get down to the very end. And then what we're going to use is our pastry cutter to cut the butter into the flour to where we have no pieces bigger than a pea. And that's going to give us our flaky layers in our scone, which is kind of like a hybrid between a cookie and a biscuit. Okay, this is my pastry cutter. We are going to cut the butter into it, which is why you need to use cold butter. Otherwise, it won't cut into it very well. It will just turn to mush, and then your scone will be like very firm versus nice and fluffy layers in it. Okay, we'll give it a good, and then I like to go through once I've cut a little bit. Just make sure I don't have any chunks of butter stuck in between my pastry blades. There we go. If you don't have a pastry cutter, you could always use a food processor or the good old-fashioned ways with 2 butter knives. This works just really well. I have a food processor. I just prefer to use a pastry cutter because it's about the same amount of time, but it's a lot less mess to clean up. So again, we're going to cut this into it to where it's no bigger than a pea. Because if you have any bigger chunks, what you'll get is kind of like a butter pocket in your scone. And so it just won't have it will still taste delicious. It just won't have the overall texture right. Okay. Looks like we've got this all cut up. I'm just going to cut out any pieces that are stuck in between here. Don't want to waste any of that good, delicious butter. Okay. And now we're going to make the wet mixture. So we're going to start out with a 1/2 cup of sourdough discard. I'm going to give it a good stir in case any hooch has developed on the top. So 1/2 cup of discard. Just scoop any of that extras out and pour it. And this is going to give it that nice, it's going to give the benefits of sourdough in our scone and our blueberry scones, but also just lovely taste. And then it will pair perfectly with our lemon orzo chicken soup and our sandwiches, kind of on a lemon theme today. We're going to add in 1 egg. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So 1, 2, and then 2 tablespoons of cream. And then we're going to give this all a good mix. And I'm using heavy whipping cream. Now you could use 1/2 and 1/2, but heavy whipping cream gives the best, I think, overall texture and flavor. So 2 tablespoons in there. I'm going to grab a fork and we're going to just mix all of those liquid ingredients together. And then we will add them to our dry ingredients. It'll create kind of a nice shag. Okay. We have them all mixed up. I'm going to add them into my bowl. Just scrape out all of this. And then we're going to use our fork to start with, and we are going to give it a nice stir. And this is going to be a drier batter because we're going to press and fold it together to form little pucks. Okay. So we've kind of got a little shag here. Now we're going to add in some lemon zest and some blueberries. So I've got my zester here, and we're going to zest up and just do the zest about 2 tablespoons or the zest of a lemon. You really want that lemony flavor to come through. And it smells so lovely. I just feel like right now when it's getting close to summer and, you know, you start craving kind of lemony and bright, happy things. There we go. That should be good. We're going to save a little bit of this lemon zest on here for our glaze as well as the juice. And then we're going to put in about 1 cup of blueberries. You want to wash your blueberries and then you want to make sure you pat them dry. And we'll just give it a good stir to kind of incorporate it out. And then we're going to do our press and folds to incorporate them all together. You don't want to mix it per se. You want to press and fold. So here is our dry, shaggy batter for our lemon scones, which is what you want because this is going to lead to the nice flaky layers in it. So we're going to dump it all out here. Get it all. And now, essentially, we're going to press and you're going to fold the piles up over onto each other. So essentially, you're you're pressing that butter into it, and that's what's going to create your flaky layers. You don't want to knead it. So it's really just pressing in and folding it until it all comes together. Once it has come together, we will shape it into 2 pucks because I like to do mini scones versus giant scones. And then you just take those blueberries in there and you just push them in there. And we're going to just do the fold and the press. The fold and the press. You know, it's like as if you had to fold a bunch of laundry. So fold and press. And now, as you can see, our batter has almost come together. My sleeve is coming down. Okay, and now I'm going to divide this into 2. I try to make them as equal as possible, but it's okay if they're not. And then you're going to make them into what I call a puck. So it's just a big circle that's about 1 inch high. Take any blueberries that you might have, just press them in there. So here's our first one. And again, just push it in there and shape it into a nice inch thick puck. There we go. Okay, let's give our onions a quick stir and then we're going to transfer our pucks. We're wanting a nice kind of caramelization on the onions for our lemon chicken orzo soup. It will just bring out the richness in the broth. Okay, this is my pastry cutter and I'm just going to slide it underneath it, kind of like a spatula. And then we're going to transfer it over to our parchment paper. I'll do the same thing over here. And then we're going to cut each one into 8ths. So I always cut them in half, and then we'll cut them in half again. And then you want to pull them out so that they bake up nicely. They need a little air between them, otherwise they can just kind of be very dense. Yep. Then we'll do the same with this guy. We're going to cut it. And we'll cut it all the way through. I'm going to pull these guys out. So it's like you're making 8 mini scones for each puck. And they will get bigger. So they aren't this small. They actually get pretty big afterwards. So they're not terribly mini, but they're much bigger than the common where you make 1 giant puck and then you make 8 out of that. So I like to have smaller ones. And then we're going to brush these with a little bit of cream and sprinkle some sugar over them to give them a nice crust. So just about a tablespoon of cream. You don't need much, just enough to kind of brush the tops of them. This will give them a nice golden brown color and will help the sugar stick to them. There we go. You could also use milk for this or half and half. It doesn't have to be cream, but you can do that. There we go. I like the cream because I'm already using it, so I don't have to get another ingredient out. And you don't need very much. And I'm just using a basting brush to kind of put the cream on it. There we go. And then we're just going to sprinkle it with a little bit of sugar. And you can use, I'm just using granulated sugar because I don't like to buy a bunch of fancy ingredients, but you can always use caster sugar, you know, the really big crumbly pieces. But I find granulated sugar does just as well, and you don't need to buy another specialty ingredient. Okay, let's go pop these in the oven. So I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees, and these are gonna cook in the oven for about 18 minutes. You always wanna put them on the top rack so that they have the best heat towards them and they'll rise up nicely. Then I'm gonna set my timer for 18 minutes. I'm gonna give my hands a quick wash because they're a little bit dirty from the scones. And then let's prep up our lemon chicken orzo soup. Okay. So we have our onions in here. They have sauteed up nicely. They've got a nice kind of golden brown color on it, which is perfect. These are what is gonna give out some lovely flavors into the broth. Now we're going to add some celery. So I have a couple bigger stalks. I'm just going to cut those a little bit smaller so that I don't have any massive pieces of celery. And then we're going to do a simple dice on them. And we're going to let those saute up with the onions because we're making the base to our lemon chicken orzo soup. And I always like to have my vegetables have a nice little saute on them first because it makes a more lovely broth. There we go. And then we're going to peel up a carrot and give it a quick dice as well. Let's just stir these in. We're going to let them saute. And I have 2 good-sized carrots. Where's my peeler? Right here. Okay. We're just going to take off this whole top skin of the carrot because it doesn't have as nice of a flavor and it's a bit more chewy. So you always want to take those off. And there we go. Give it a good peel. Right before I put Chef Teddy down for a nap, I was setting up my ingredients and stuff like that. And he was like, oh, I need to go give these carrots to the bunnies outside. And I was like, oh, no, I'm using these ones. But I can go give you a carrot to give to the bunnies. Both Evie and Teddy have been feeding our neighborhood bunnies. They leave little trails of carrots. They're trying to lure them into our backyard. But I keep telling them, I said, these bunnies aren't going to come anywhere near our house with our cats and our dogs. But they're like little Hansel and Gretel leaving like a carrot and lettuce trail to our house from like the community lot behind it. So we're going to add our carrots in. So for the thinner ones, I just slice them up. But here I'm going to cut these in half because, again, I don't want my carrots to be super huge, more mellow. Okay. We'll add. And then we're going to give these a good stir. Let them saute up to make the base for our lemon chicken orzo soup. There we go. And while these are sauteing, we are going to add in some oregano and some dill. There we go. Had to get a new oregano. Oregano is one of those spices I use a lot of. Probably almost every day or every other day. We're going to put about, I want to say, a teaspoon of oregano in and about a teaspoon of dill.
Yeah, you have a question. How can someone get the recipe?
So we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So the best way that you can get them is to just rewatch them and cook them along with them. I do try to make recipe cards, but I don't. That's extra work versus me just cooking already for my family. So the best way is probably just to revisit our videos once they're uploaded, and we try to get them up within an hour or two. We're going to stir in our dill and our oregano. And then we're going to add in a little bit of black pepper, about a half a teaspoon. And then about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of garlic salt. There we go. A good couple shakes. And I like to heat my spices up with the veggies in there because the olive oil and the heat help bring out the flavors of those herbs. a lot more than if you were to just throw them into the broth. Okay. Beautiful. Now we're going to throw in some green onions, but we're only going to throw in part of the green onions. We're going to throw in the bottom parts, and we're going to leave the top parts to go in the soup later. So let me give these a quick wash, although it looks like they've been well washed already. They're not like leeks. Leeks are ones that are impossible. But here we've got our herbs right there. And we're going to cut off the tips of our green onions. And then we're going to add it into our sauteed vegetables for our chicken lemon orzo soup. So we're going to start with just the whitish parts of the green onions, because you want to cook them up a little bit more. The tops of the green onions are better to add at the very end for another bright flavor, but I do find the bottoms need a little bit of cooking because they can be a bit more astringent. So we're going to give those a nice stir. And then we are going to add in about 4 cups of water, a big scoop of chicken bouillon, and then a little bit of lemon zest. So here I've got my 4 cups of water, and then chicken bouillon. You could use straight up chicken broth, but I find that chicken broth is kind of bland. So I prefer bouillon because I can use a bit more of it to get more flavor out. So I'm going to take a big heaping spoonful. And this is also going to be the primarily like the saltiness to the soup, so you don't need to add any additional salt. So give there, just make sure all of that comes off. And then I'm going to heat this. And once it comes to a boil, we'll add in our orzo for it to start cooking. But you want to bring it to a nice boil first. Okay. And we are going to add in some lemon zest first. We will add in the lemon juice towards the end, but I find that the lemon juice comes, if you put it in sooner, it really helps brighten up the lemony flavor of the broth. So we're going to just zest up. I had already used some of this lemon before for some zesting.
Tiffany just sent you again.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. We appreciate that a lot here. So we're going to zest up this guy. And you want about a tablespoon of lemon zest, but make sure you're doing kind of a fine zesting. I find this is actually like a Parmesan cheese grater, but it is amazing for zesting. And it gives nice little smaller pieces. I had this other zester and it felt like more like a lemon twirl than it was a like zest. So make sure your zester isn't too big, because otherwise you'll get really kind of hard chunks of lemon in there. So you want about a tablespoon of lemon peel. There we go.
So you have a question? Can you make those lemon lime tarts again soon?
Yes, I can. Now I'm wondering whether that was a question from there or from my husband's favorite dessert. But yes, I will guess make those up again. They are delicious. Now I'm not so sure if that was a true question or not. It's awfully specific. Okay. We're going to let this have a quick simmer. We're going to throw in, I don't throw in my shredded chicken until the end, because if you put it in too soon, it can fall apart more. So I have rotisserie chicken, and then our orzo, once this comes to a boil, we'll put that in. But now, while this is warming up, we are going to work on our sandwiches and our glaze for our scones. So let's clean up this area just a little bit. You can get messy baking. You know, the one thing that is great about pastry cutters is they're really great for cleaning up afterwards. They're like, it's like a squidgy, you know what I mean? You can just scrape everything into here. Okay. Got a little bit there. We don't need this or this. Let's start prepping our sandwiches. So we had some leftover sourdough rolls from our dinner last night, which these are my favorite rolls that I make. They are just so soft and pillowy, but they have a nice kind of chewy crust that they're perfect. They're everyone's favorites, and they're great like to even have the next day. They do take a hot minute to rise. Let's see, which two will be good. We'll do these two. We prep them and then take us about 6 or so hours for them. They have a pinch of yeast in them just to help with the sourdough rise, but they are delicious. Give that a quick stir. So let's cut these guys in half for our sandwiches, but you can kind of see the inside. They're just lovely, soft. I want to see if you get a good squish in them, but they are so delicious, especially right out of the oven, but they make great sandwiches. Before we move on to that, I see our orzo, our water is boiling here, our broth. So we're going to add in some orzo. Now, be cautioned, when you add an orzo or rice or pasta to a soup, you are more likely going to add too much. So I'm adding about 1/4 of a cup, and that is all I need in there because it gets bigger and it expands. And if you add too much, then you will lose all of the broth to your soup, and it will just soak up into a big sponge. Looks like Jackie Bear is waking up from his nap, even though he just went down 30 minutes ago. He is letting us know he's unhappy in there. But he always wakes up like 30 minutes after he goes to sleep, and he just screams for about 2 seconds. He's already done, and he falls right back to sleep. It's funny. He just letting us know his displeasure on having to take a nap. Little does he know, when you get older, you wish you could take naps. Okay, I'm going to do on one of them, I'm going to do mayo and pesto because it's delicious. And then the other one I will keep plain for my husband, who apparently doesn't appreciate mayo. There we go. So we're going to mix it together. It'll be delicious. Put a little bit on both sides. Kind of smush it together like that. I always like to have what I call the sauce on your bread or something wet to just help blend all the flavors together. Okay, we're going to use some havarti cheese. We're going to make what I call an Italian BMT. So it's like the Subway's Italian sandwich that they use. I don't know if they still make it or not. I haven't eaten at Subway in years. But it is like salami, pepperoni, and ham and cheese. And it is delicious. It is a combination you wouldn't think goes well together, but it does work really well. So it's just also a great way to reuse your rolls, because I don't like anything to ever go to waste. So we'll load up his a little bit more. And then you do salami, pepperoni for the spice, and then ham. I like to use a smoked ham with this because I feel like it works a little bit better than a sweeter ham. But it balances all out. And I will say, I'm not a huge ham person, but I do like it on this sandwich. And we'll give him a little bit more pepperoni.
I do have a question. When are you doing your next sourdough loaf?
I'm actually going to feed my starter so that we can work on our sourdough loaves tonight. We're going to do some mini loaves, and I'm working on some inclusions to do for them because I want to do not just my mini ones, but like ones that have something cool added in. I was thinking about a lemon blueberry one might be awesome. There we go. Add one more. So yeah, so we're going to feed our starter so it's ready. I was going to do it yesterday, but my starter needed a little rehab because I had just fed it and used it, and it didn't pop up quite as much. And if you try to use your starter before it's ready, your bread won't develop. Okay, put our cheese, and then I'm going to put some tomatoes because who doesn't love tomatoes?
You have a question. Where's the recipe for your sourdough bread, your traditional one?
My traditional one, it should be on the link on our page. You click there, and there should be a recipe card for it, as well as a video for it on how to make it from start to beginning. And there should also be one for how to make your starter if you don't have a starter developed already.
And then you have another question. How are the pepperoni breadsticks?
They were delicious. And I was surprised because I wasn't sure whether my little ones would like it because they're not as big of a fan of pepperoni, but they loved it because it was baked. It was in the sourdough bread that I made. So it wasn't so like in your face pepperoni, but it was there and it was absolutely delicious. So we've got our sandwiches made here. Let's put some more ingredients in. We've got our orzo in, so let's get our chicken in here. So I have good old Costco. You know, you can buy like a 2.5 pound bag of shredded chicken, which I love because I can use it to make several different recipes. It's just their good old rotisserie chicken. And you don't have to shred it yourself because back in the day, every time you wanted chicken noodle soup, you had to boil the chicken and shred it. Anytime you needed shredded chicken for anything, you had to boil the chicken or roast it. Well, this actually makes it a little bit faster and it's not crazy expensive. We're going to give it a little chop just because sometimes you get some really big pieces in there. It is Costco, so they like to make everything bigger. There we go. And we're going to pour this in with our orzo and our broth and all that deliciousness. And here we go. We're going to let that cook for a little bit. We still have to add several more things to our soup. We'll have our spinach is going to come in at the end, but you don't add your spinach towards the end until the very end because it wilts. And then we're going to add in our fresh green onions and our parsley. And then I always like to top it off with a little bit of Parmesan cheese.
Do you have a question? What does havarti cheese taste like?
It is kind of like a Munster. If you've had a Munster before, it is a semi-soft cheese. It's better than a Munster. I think it's more creamy. It's like a butter queso if you've had a butter queso, but it is a semi-soft cheese that is very mild.
More and more obscure.
I'm getting more and more obscure. Well, Munster is a cheese that is in a lot of places. It's not like provolone. Provolone is a very chewy cheese that has like a funky flavor to it. But it is a creamy sweet.
Munster cheese was a good reference.
Ha! Thank you. I was right. My husband thinks he knows more than me.
Butter queso.
Delicious. Okay, we're gonna let that simmer and cook up. Our scones are gonna be out soon, so let's make the glaze for them. I'll slide my sandwiches over. Look at those beautiful sourdough rolls. They're just so delicious. Okay, for our glaze, we need powdered sugar and a lemon. That's all you need for this glaze. It's super simple, super easy, but delicious. And it goes great with the blueberries. I feel like blueberries are like lemon and blueberries just are really nice together. Just gonna pick out some of these seeds because they are no fun in there. I was about to zest or juice it, but the oven is calling me. So let's go grab our scones out of the oven and then we can make the glaze. Okay, let's grab a trivet too. Look at those. You see how those blueberries are just popping? They're gonna be delicious. So here are our lemon blueberry scones. So we put the lemon zest in them with the blueberries, and now we're gonna make a delicious lemon glaze to dress them up because you gotta dress them up. So here are our lemon blueberry scones. Let's make that yummy glaze. So we're gonna start by juicing our lemon. Get all of that. We're probably gonna need, you want about 2 tablespoons. So you're gonna need about the whole thing. But before I juice this part, there's my zester. We're gonna add a little bit of zest in here. I like a little bit of zest in the glaze because I think it makes it pop even more. And I like the kind of little chewy texture of it. And you've got to use fresh lemon zest. Don't use dry lemon zest. has a whole nother flavor profile. Okay, let's add in, let's get out some of these seeds. Sometimes you get a lemon and it's like you hit the seed jackpot. There we go. So we've got our fresh lemon. I'm going to pull out these seeds before we start to mix it up. There we go. And then let me get a little fork because I do like to mix my glaze with a fork versus a spoon because it helps you just mix it a little bit better. And we're going to start with about a half a cup of powdered sugar, and then we're going to see if we need to add more. If you want a more mellow lemon glaze, do half of the lemon juice and then add some cream to it because that will give you more of a creamy lemon glaze. But if you like a nice tart one, then just keep it all lemon juice. Add a little bit more. And what I'm looking for is the texture of my glaze to be like Elmer's glue. You know, have a nice drizzle to it, not too viscous that it runs everywhere, but not too thick that it's like a frosting. And turn our soup, it's got a lovely boil on. Here we go. Give it a good whip. And that's just the way I said a fork works great for this because a spoon will lead you with a lot of clumps. You could use a whisk too if you wanted to, but I find the fork just does great. So here we've kind of got a nice, let's do a little bit thicker. Plus, who doesn't love lemon glaze? Okay, there you go. And you can even gives you kind of the color of Elmer's glue when you get to the right one. There's good. So we've kind of got a nice drizzle. Beautiful. Okay, let's get a spoon and we're going to drizzle them over. I like to drizzle them over, and then if I have leftovers, once they cool down, I'll drizzle them again. But the first drizzle, it melts all the way over, and it is so nice. So it really kind of coats it, and it gives it a nice kind of delicious glazy shell on them. And the lemon just pairs beautifully with the blueberries. And then, of course, you know, we filled it up with the zest of a whole lemon. So it's going to be extra lemony and delicious, but those blueberries really complement it. It's perfect for a spring, summer treat. And these are great for a quick breakfast on the go or a snack. I do like to do the mini ones because then you can grab one and you feel like you're having a little treat versus, you know, a big giant one. And I think they just cook up a little bit better when you make them nice and mini. But these are, again, our delicious lemon blueberry scones. We used our sourdough discard in this recipe, which gives it just a nice texture and flavor. We pressed and fold the butter in there to create so many delicious layers. And then, of course, we're topping it off with our lemon glaze. Voila, beautiful. Okay, let's finish off this soup here. Beautiful. Let's give it a nice stir. And we're going to add in some spinach. You always want to add your spinach in towards the end. If you add it in too soon, it just wilts away to nothing. So we're going to add in about 2 handfuls. Looks like a lot of spinach now, but this will be like down to nothing in no time. And then I'm going to tuck it under the broth. Have it pick up all of those nice flavors and wilt enough. And then I'm going to mince up our green onions here and a little bit of fresh parsley. And then we're going to add in our lemon juice at the very end. So let's get our green onions in.
I have a question. What time do you usually go live?
It really varies, but we do try to go live around 1:30 to 2-ish, most weekdays for a lunch. That's kind of when we've got our little ones to bed and whatnot, down for a nap. And then our evening ones, That really varies because it's based on our sports schedule and whatnot, but that could be anywhere between 7:45 and 8:15 when we start that. Um, Again, this is more like a hobby for me that I'm doing, so I don't let it quite dictate my life versus
What time zone?
Central Time Zone.
And then you have a question asking for the scone recipe.
Yes. So the scone recipe, the best way to probably get it to you would be to just rewatch the video. I know I've made blueberry scones before. So I don't have this recipe card up, but yeah, we'll upload this video in about an hour or so, and that will probably be the best way to get it. I am planning to make, actually, I want to make sure I take a good picture of these. I want to make a recipe card for this one because I think people are going to love this one right now at this time of the year. We're going to add in our fresh parsley. Look at this. So all those greens at the end make it very pretty and springy and fresh.
Do you know what's for dinner tonight?
I don't know what's for dinner tonight. I haven't even really thought about it yet. It takes me a minute to really like collect my ideas and think about it. So no, I'm not 100% sure at all. I have no idea yet. Something delicious. I know I'm terrible about what I'm, thinking about making. Everyone always asks me, and I'm like, I have no idea. We're going to put in the juice of 1 whole lemon. There we go. Make sure there's no visible seeds. This lemon is going to just brighten up this soup, and it is just so good. It's really refreshing, especially when we're kind of leaving soup weather. This is one that you can carry on into like late spring because it is so refreshing. Okay, well, our soup is done. So let's serve up. I got to get my Parmesan cheese because I love to sprinkle some over my soup because the melting in is just delicious. And let's do a pretty bowl. And we can turn off our soup. Okay, so we've got our lemon chicken orzo soup with that nice lemony broth, but it also has dill and fresh parsley, green onions, and some oregano in it. And then you want to add some shredded Parmesan to the top. That's just going to add a lovely flavor. We will serve it with our sandwich, of course, on the side. And last but definitely not least, a delicious lemon blueberry scone for dessert. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day. I like to show you what we're making for our family, hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, the best way you can access our videos is we upload them and we post them on the link on our page, so you can always rewatch anything and cook along. We also have some recipe cards there as well. And we do have a membership if you want to join that offers you some more exclusive videos and content, just some stuff we don't post everywhere, a lot about the family, extra recipes, and whatnot. Well, guys, again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.